Welcome to the Locals Lounge. Join us as we dive deeper into the nuggets of wisdom we barely touched upon in the official pod. We have the time, the space, the room, the air to breathe to really delve into some of these topics. Joining us once again, Kevin Joseph and John Cross. Kevin, how are you doing tonight? I know we
I
just
am
talked, but
good.
yep.
Yeah, happy with the win on Saturday. Got myself a beverage in between videos here, so let's go.
John, how are you?
Oh, sorry. Wasn't sure if I was supposed to jump in
Well,
there or
because
wait
it's
for
it's
you.
think about it this way: it's two podcasts, so like I feel like even though we are continuing a conversation we just wrapped up, somebody not consuming
Absolutely.
this
Yeah.
live might be coming in blind. And who is who is this with the fantastic voice? John Cross, introduce yourself.
Thank you. I am John Cross, as you said, and I am producing a bunch of the shows here. And tonight, I'm drinking water.
John is the busiest man on Bum TV. That's for sure. So we do have a correction to make. Something that rarely happens, but sometimes it does happen. We did put out some incorrect information in the last podcast. We don't want people operating on any false pretenses or getting the wrong idea about things. Um, but the Bum Instagram account is Bum the Local, not Bum the Dog. That was my mistake. And for that, I do apologize. But please still go. You know, if there's a Bum the Dog, follow them too. But for us, Bum the Local, follow Bum the Local. All right. On
On
Instagram.
Instagram. Yeah.
I also meant to shout out and forgot to Cesar Hernandez from ESPN. Cesar is a San Diego guy. He is a reporter. He covers Liga MX for ESPN. He covered the World Cup, and he wrote a great story about USL soccer. Published today on ESPN.com. And basically, what Caesar does is he introduces USL as kind of a proving ground for international stars. He draws the connection between Liverpool, Barcelona, Club America, San Diego Loyal, and Charleston Battery, right? All teams that have players playing in the recent CONCACAF U17 tournament. And many of those internationals are likely going to earn spots on their respective countries' teams for the 2026 World Cup cycle. So, lots of international talent in USL. And, Caesar just does a really good job in kind of looking at the league from the like North American soccer perspective. It's not second division because we don't have pro rel. He calls it a de facto second division, but it's a pro league in its own right, which all of us know. It's just a great read, a good introduction to USL if you're a little on the fence about it or you don't want to get into quote unquote minor league sports. I'll be the first one to tell you that it is not a minor league. It's a lot of fun, but Caesar does a great job talking about the league, and I just wanted to give him a shout out and point people to his story.
I did not get a chance to read that yet since it just came out today. And I think I found it for anybody who's watching. You'll have to help let me know if this is the correct article here.
Yep, that's it. The headline is
Yeah.
USL enters new era of developing the next generation of US Mexico talent.
All right. I look forward to looking at that.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see this kind of thing. I go way back. I am old, both just in general as well as in U.S. soccer terms. I've talked people's ears off mostly while drinking about my previous time in Minnesota, and I go back to the old USL First Division and into NASL before Minnesota United became an MLS team. Long story short, I've been through the ringer with second division stuff, and it is amazing to me now, getting a chance to see it all again with Loyal. The leaps and bounds this league has, how far it's come. You've got these types of players, getting into the youth setup for the U.S. national team. You've got all these players playing on senior national teams in various places in the world. And you've got, a lot of stability in the league now that you just didn't get in the older days. Lots of teams fold after half a season, let alone one season. So the strides that USL has taken in the last 5+ years is amazing.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, really has made a huge strides forwards in the last few years.
And it's just such a fun league, especially when you compare it to MLS, which has more rigidity, has boring kits, it has boring team names, and then you get to USL and you have a lot more creativity, you have more expression, and you have great competition. You have hungry players, you have young players with a lot of talent, a lot of promise. And let me tell you, it's affordable. Like, I can afford to go to every single Loyal match. I can afford to take my family to every single Loyal match. If we were, going to Wave, like I could not afford to do that. If it was an MLS team, I could not afford to do that. So I really enjoy the practicality of supporting the league. And then just, it's not like you're getting less for your money. You're getting more because the competition is great. The atmosphere is incredible. And you get to interact with these players. You get to talk with them. There was a picture on Twitter of, I think there was like 7, 8, 9 players long after the game ended that were just standing in front of fans, signing anything and everything put in front of them, and taking pictures with fans. And you just don't get that at the higher levels.
Yeah, I agree. It is a totally different experience.
Speaking of the fan experience, we teased it a little bit in the main show, but the fan experience in USL is very interesting. I think we've experienced this to greater and lesser degrees with some of our encounters with the team from the state next to us. They have come into our stadium and been not so cool. They have, they're everything. I think the online back and forth is kind of to be expected. They did have a pretty decent sign in their stadium last season. I will admit, give them their points when it's due. It didn't stop Alejandro Guido from getting an incredible game-winning goal right in front of that sign, which made it all the better. But we did have this, and I think it's still probably ongoing on Twitter with Detroit, a team that is in their second year in USL. They were here last year, right?
Yeah.
So they, my perspective, right? And I did not start the supporters group. I'm not on leadership of the supporters group. I'm in another supporters group, and I do a lot of stuff with them too. Like, I'm not, speaking for the group or anything like that. But my thinking is like, if you are trying to build something or grow something or like expand your community, your soccer community locally, like, that's what the supporter group does. Like, I don't know if just getting on Twitter and like just going at like each team that each team that your team is about to play and just going at their supporters is I mean, maybe. I mean, do we do that? I haven't seen a lot of that.
Well, I I I think it's I mean, I think it's easy sometimes to really simplify it, like this supporter group and that supporter group. But I think supporter groups in and of themselves are a bit complex because we certainly have people who engaged with Detroit online with the Northern Guard. And we have a whole bunch of people who didn't, right? I'm one of those people who that's just not my thing. And for some people that is their thing. I also, for me, try to be very careful to not label an entire supporter group based on a couple of vocal people. I think every supporter group can have those people who can be very aggressive. I've met people from Phoenix, especially when they come over and talked with people, and a totally different take than maybe some of the people who maybe from our perspective are giving more toxic stuff online. But I think for some people that is, while it's not fun for me, I think some people find that fun. That the baiting to see if you can needle someone, to see if you can get a reaction out of them. And I don't think everybody in every supporter group is like that, but I do think there's key people sometimes, and some different supporters get kind of a rep, and I think we feel that way sometimes from, we got a taste of the Northern Guard a little bit, and I chuckled at quite a bit of their stuff. They had some things going, but it wasn't. I'm just not the type of person who would respond back to any of that, And I think Phoenix has had some good digs at times, but
the
I also
Carlton
think
sign was great.
some people go to me go too far. But again, I don't speak for the supporter group, just like Andrew said as well. These are just my personal feelings. And I am of the mind, one of the big reasons I don't engage is, as I tell people all the time, I want to direct all my energy towards my team. So that stuff doesn't interest me. I'll read it, I'll look at it, I'll chuckle, but I really like to focus my attention on my team always. During the match, away from the match, highlighting the positive stuff. And just before I wrap up my little piece here, I have always, while we had an interaction with them this week, I have always personally held a lot of respect for what they've done in Detroit City. I mean, that is quite a story. Really, a supporter built club and what they've done. I know we gave them some digs in the pod last time and kind of, just
getting
some
promoted
things
from
out back.
AYSO, eventually
Yeah.
getting to the USL. That's
But
incredible accomplishment.
But to go from, the MPSL and then carry it on to NISA, and they won the championship twice, and then to go and compete successfully in USL, I think there's a great story there. And I think they, as a supporter group, have built up a culture of, I mean, I don't know how else to put it, assholery. That's their shtick. That's the thing they do. They go already as soon as the game was over with us, they've pivoted towards El Paso and they're going after them. That's what at least some people do from that group. And I'm not going to tell another supporter group how to be supporters, but that's what they do. That's not the way I would do it. And I like what we do in our group, but that's just, maybe it's a San Diego thing versus the Detroit thing. I don't know. But I don't want to sit here and tell any supporter group or supporter you're doing it wrong. I think there's lots of room for lots of people, and I personally don't mind the banter when it's, I don't know, when it doesn't cross the line. To me, always banter is between friends. So I'd like to have that friendly relationship with a supporter group and have that banter where we can go at each other as we lead up to the game, and we can, for 90 minutes during the game, to go on Chris Walker from the Black Diamonds. I'll paraphrase because I can't remember the exact phrasing, but, we're competitors in the seats and friends on the streets. I'd love to meet with more supporter groups and have a beer with them. I wish some of the Northern Guard would have come to the parking lot. I don't know if any did. I didn't see anybody. Maybe they were doing their own thing. But I like to get to know people. So I would, and the more I know them, like I can joke with my friends in ways I don't joke with strangers. So I don't mind the banter when we all kind of know each other, but when you don't know each other and strangers, then it just feels like being an asshole.
Right.
Yeah.
To me, yeah, it's also there's not a history between our clubs of never played before. It's kind of like you're trying to create something artificially that wasn't there organically. Kevin, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no. I was going to kind of piggyback on what John said, especially get together and drink together. Previous groups I've been in, kind of on my own, kind of developed what we like to call Drink 90 Drink, which is let's get together and drink together. Let's hate each other's teams for 90 minutes, and then let's get together and drink again.
Well, let's get into. I want to learn a little bit about you, man. Tell me, what other groups were you in?
So if we go back, I started going to games in Minnesota in 2005. Like, there's a whole long story about how I got there. But
do they always have to thaw the field out before the game? How does soccer work in Minnesota?
It's been worse. It's been worse. I don't know if you saw any.
Do they take the hockey rink off the field? Like they have to? Is it one piece of ice, or they?
Look, they've got an amazing stadium now that I saw the highlights from this weekend when they played Red Bulls, and there was snow on the field and all that. But it would have been so much worse. It used to be in the old USL days. We wouldn't get that. They'd start the league in like April. We wouldn't get a home game until May. Like it just wouldn't happen.
Oh.
And then all the home games are in the dead of the summer, because nobody wants to come that way in the early part. So I have traveled around quite a bit to Minnesota away games over the years, and oftentimes I was the only away fan. Like in those old USL days, nobody was near us. Like I think at one point the closest team to Minnesota in the league they're playing in, I think in NASL, was Atlanta. So but I'm one of those people that loves to travel to the away games. So, and I'd be the only one. And most groups are like, come drink with us. Like, come tailgate with us.
So I felt bad for you. You're like the only guy in the other team.
Right.
Hey, man, come on, bro. Come on. We got you.
And it never hurts that, like, we've never really had a natural rivalry. Like, you had the Cascadia teams when they were in the lower divisions. But even, like, we did this weird, crazy road trip in 2007. Over the course of 4 days, they played in Portland, Seattle, and Vancouver. 3 games in 4 days. It was brutal. But a group of us went to all of them. And all of those supporter groups were like, here's where we drink beforehand. Here's where we drink after. Like, come join us. So there are definitely groups out there. There are some that don't get it. But I think for the most part, people get it.
Yeah, that's mostly been our experience too with groups that have come through here. When we went to LA Galaxy in the Open Cup, we had a lot of fun with the Galaxy group, beers before and after the game, because they do it right at the stadium. So it was really cool, and they were really cool with us, and it wasn't weird at all. It was very fun. Which is kind of what you want to see. And I think we've, there's been times, I think it was Phoenix that last season or the season before where we'd invited them to the parking lot and they like rolled in on their bus and literally just stayed on their bus instead of like coming and drinking, like whatever, but that's fine. 'Cause we have a lot of fun kicking their asses every time we play. So makes it all the better.
The close rivalries are always a little different. Like, when I've been to some places, like, I was in Houston with friends who are part of Texian Army there, and like I tailgated with them, no problem. But if it were Dallas, they wouldn't party together. It's always a little different when you've got a good rivalry, and that Phoenix and San Diego is definitely a good rivalry so far. Yeah.
As long as they, I just wish they'd move over, like go to the right lane. Like, why are you in the left lane?
See, I have that complaint about Californians too.
When you go to Arizona, it's the same thing. You drive in Phoenix and you think, oh, I'm in the fast lane. No, you're not. you're in the speed limit lane, because that's, to them, I feel like the speed limit is speeding. Like they are speeding if they're going the speed limit, and then they bring that over here, and it don't work.
I don't know. Years ago, I drove in Phoenix on their loop, and yeah, you had like some people driving kind of slow, and you also had the people doing like 90. It's crazy.
So, what are your guys' thoughts then for Banter overall? I gave mine.
I don't know. I feel like I for me it's a one and done type of thing. Like I'm not going to get into a back and forth with anybody for the most part, especially on Twitter. Like you don't win, you lose by playing. The only way you win is by not to play. So um, you I'm a big fan of
War
the
games.
quote tweet and the quote tweet and forget it. Like you say your piece and you move on. You don't respond to anybody. You don't get into it. I don't like responding to other people. I would rather either quote tweet or do the screenshot and say what I've got to say, because that's kind of how I use my Twitter account. I don't like to respond, and I don't want to be a reply guy. I don't want to be somebody that like replies too much. You really got to be careful, because the thing about, especially this app that's really pretty broken at the moment, is that when you reply to somebody, people who follow you, sometimes your reply will go into their feed. So, like, if you have a lot of people following you for reasons other than soccer banter, and you start replying to like soccer arguments and stuff, maybe it doesn't reflect well on you and your professional career.
Right.
So I'm more,
And let's all remember the internet never forgets.
yeah, yeah. But I do
So,
think I'm a big fan of the like and the group DM and sharing stuff in the Discord, because that's more or less where you're actually going to get people's like unabridged thoughts on things and real opinions.
I'm curious for either of you what like we're getting ready to play Phoenix. Historically, there's been, again, to use some people's language, some toxic back and forth. I think both sides, not, I wouldn't say it's one-sided. Someone may start something and then it gets heated both directions. What are your thoughts generally on that as an engagement between supporter groups?
You go first, Kevin.
I pay it no mind, really. Unless they want to talk things that are out of bounds, then I don't really care. All I care is that Loyal beats him on Sunday.
Andrew?
I was muted, but I mean, so my thoughts, and it kind of says it all about their supporter group, is they're not in the kind of the national organization that kind of sets kind of the rules and standards for supporters groups. They've chosen not to join it. I think it's the ICC or the
ISC.
Yeah. ISC. There you go. They've chosen not to join it, and that kind of says all that needs to be said about their SG. And there you go.
Why? I mean, I don't know how many of you know this. I don't know if Markland still does it, but one definitely in, I guess it was the first big season we were back in the stadium. Markland usually made a point every home match to go find a supporter and buy them a beer. What are your thoughts about that? Good thing
I
to
can
do.
barely
Should you do it?
afford to buy my own beers. I mean, beers are what, $12, $13 in the stadium?
Truth.
Like, I'm
Oh, yeah.
sorry. Sorry, Phoenix. Buy your own beer.
I like the idea though. I like the sentiment there. You know, yeah. But, I mean, I've already said I will always drink with other soccer fans as long as they understand that it's all just soccer. It's all just people.
It was fun when we were in Vegas in 2021. The tailgate was like on the lawn at the stadium. There wasn't really a tailgate, but their SG was right there, and like we went and traded some San Diego beers for some Vegas beers, and there was some scarf trading, and it was very, they were kind of, they're soccer fans, and they're kind of put upon by their ownership who wants to this Vegas spectacle of a soccer experience that is kind of outside of what most soccer fans expect from a game day. And they had to deal with all that crap with their club, like being part of LAFC and all of this stuff. And it's like, we're not going to dump on these people or start slinging arrows on Twitter about their scrub team or something like it just seems crappy to like do stuff like that whenever, like, you have to understand what these enduring from their ownership. So, but like, that's Vegas. Phoenix is different.
Right. I mean, we're all second division U.S. soccer fans. Like, we're a pathetic kind of lot as you look at the big picture. And let's all be that pathetic together.
Yeah. It's Nick is talking about having positive interactions with Phoenix fans. I don't think, for me it's just fun. Like I don't like personally, or like I don't have a reason to really dislike their group or anybody in their group. Like I really don't. Like I oppose Phoenix, like in the grand scheme of like human civilization. Like it shouldn't exist. There should not be a city in that valley. It shouldn't be there. It shouldn't exist. Yet it does. Like I can't get over it. And so my opposition is based just on like this, this historic human existence scale, right? Like, whenever, when the Sumerians, when Mesopotamia, that used to be a very different climate, and when the climate changed, these civilizations, they migrated out of there, right? They change and stuff. You don't go into an inhospitable climate and like start a civilization. Like it doesn't make sense. And so yeah, I'm just opposed to Phoenix as an idea, as a conceptually.
So yours runs deeper and carries over to the team.
It's also because it also comes from the NBA. So the team from my hometown, they used to play the team from Phoenix in the playoffs. And one year, our team was better than Phoenix. Well, we always were better than Phoenix. But one year, Phoenix had this little Canadian guy, and he fell into the scorers table in a playoff game, and a bunch of their undisciplined players lost their minds and left the bench and ended up getting suspended in a playoff game. And so I'm a veteran of the ESPN message boards from way back. Like they used to have message boards, and before there was Twitter banter, before there was Facebook banner, you could find me, don't know my name, but you could find me on the message boards engaging with the fan group from Phoenix. And that experience really soured me on a lot of their sports fans because for years, even today, it's been a lot of years. That was 2006, 2005. 2007. It was 2007. Definitely 2007 because we won the championship against LeBron James. And yeah, they for over a decade they have wanted to argue online about that playoff series, and the fact is that they had their whole team back in that series and they still lost. So if you were better, you would have won. But I'm sorry. So my thing with Phoenix, it goes back
It
Mesopotamia,
runs much deeper.
the 2007 playoffs. Boom. That's the history.
All right, Kevin, do you have a team, an opposing team that you loathe? I don't know how else to phrase it, that you really dislike.
If we're putting it in USL terms, I haven't really developed in current USL. I haven't really developed a loathed team. I mean, Phoenix, fine, but it's not, say, the level. If we go back a number of years in my own lower division rivalries, what aside before I say this, what like MPAA rating are we giving this podcast? By the way.
Oh, this is the lounge, baby.
Yeah, this is
okay.
anything goes in
Let
the
it
lounge.
fly. No.
So
it
so
all
the
goes on the
evergreen
same channel.
hashtag that we'll use for the rest of time is fuck the cosmos.
Ah. Yeah. It's interesting because I don't think for me I have any sport organization, anything that I hate, that I loathe, fan group, anything. I don't know. I think my family would say because I couldn't be bothered. I can't spend the energy on that. It's the same thing I said before. It's just I can't expend the energy for that. And probably the worst thing that I guess for me, rather than spewing hatred or engaging people in toxic conversations, for me it's just ignore. I
Right.
just don't pay attention. That's my thing. It's like it, and I don't necessarily mean it in an offensive bad way, but most other teams in the USL, other than I can appreciate things that they've done or that I see, they don't come across my radar that much. Even in the matches. And I I love meeting new supporters. I love going out. I love, like, especially the New Mexico group, and got a lot of people from the Oakland supporter group. I like supporters that bring a large supporting group into our stadium. I think it helps raise the atmosphere. Again, as long as it doesn't, things, you don't get shenanigans happening. But if you got a group that's just cheering for their team and you're cheering for your team, I think it elevates the play on the field.
It's better.
It raises the atmosphere. It makes everything more fun. I really hate looking over to our away section and there's 2 fans over there. And sometimes you're just not going to get people who are able to travel. But and again, maybe it's just me and who I am, but I like to go out of my way to meet other groups and other people to see what they're doing. And, I'll do a quick plug. I mean, this is something Jason and I have talked about. We want to do another show where we do some interviews and interview some different supporter groups in a way to kind of ask them, like, how do you become a group? What do you do in the community? Like, what are the hurdles you have to overcome? Like, so we can learn from each other and grow. And I know, Andrew, we've had these conversations recently about maybe going outside the USL, maybe talking to some MLS supporter groups and having some of those conversations. I like the human side of it. So I think the toxic part just kind of turns me off and I ignore it for those. I just don't have the energy.
I've got to recognize a comment from the chat because Alicia is calling me out on my hypocrisy. I don't know, John, if you see that comment. She's talking about Southern California and our aqueducts.
Okay.
2 things about this is, one, okay, I'm not from Southern California, so like many people who live here, I'm not from here, so it gives me a little bit of room to talk on this issue. And 2, that's LA. I know we get our water too, but the point is that we're good. Okay,
They're
and
bad.
they're bad.
I mean, I have been to Phoenix. You're not wrong.
That's the difference. Don't call me out on flaws in my logic or my reasoning. We are the good guys. They are the bad guys. This all falls apart if you start analyzing it at that level.
Looking at that chat, I am not originally from San Diego by any stretch, but I think Jason does make a good point of someone who needs to be hated in perpetuity at this point is Dean Spanos.
Yeah. See, and I can't even get bothered for that. It's too much energy. I know
Like
how
I'm not
people
really
feel.
an NFL fan. I didn't follow the Chargers really, even though they were still here when I moved here. But I enjoyed those years that they played in Carson and the Galaxy continually outdrew them. Like I just enjoy that kind of hubris getting smacked back.
You can certainly appreciate that, absolutely.
What I don't
But I think
understand is. Oh, I'm sorry, John.
go ahead. Oh, I was going to say I think my thing with Dean Spanos is I disassociated myself from the Chargers and the NFL before that really turned sour and they left. I was pretty much when Junior Seau died. I was a huge Charger fan. And then, the concussion stuff. And then after he died, I couldn't watch a football game after that. I'd watch a football game, I'd see people get hit, and I would cringe. And I just kind of walked away from the game. I've always been a soccer fan, but then it really helped me channel more of my energy into my soccer fandom. So when they left, I had already kind of, I was done with the NFL. So that probably contributes to my apathy. But
That's so funny.
That's where you can show I maybe my hatred it's my apathy.
Yeah, around that time, I think it was 2013. I read this book. It's called Against Football, and it's like the moral case against cheering for the NFL or being a football fan. It's by a guy named Steve Almond. He used to host a radio show on public radio, and it was really interesting reading his book and kind of. So I used to be like a big, huge like Cowboy fan. Like I used to have the Cowboys fat head, and I still have like autographed like memorabilia that I haven't been able to. I've been putting it on eBay. I haven't got rid of all of it yet, but like I took my baby when he was like less than a year old to a Cowboys training camp at the Alamo Dome one year. Like there's pictures of me in my jersey pushing the stroller with like an infant, like just crazy stuff. And then when we really started to learn about subconcussive hits and CTE, and when all of this data started coming out, the book League of Denial, I think, followed Steve Almond's book, or it might have been before, but all of that stuff kind of came to a head, and I was already living in California, and so it was a little easier for me to give up my football, but I gave it up. I dropped it completely. I stopped watching games. I stopped following the leagues. I used to be a big college football fan too, and I just dropped it. In the last few years, like I'll watch a game. When I was at San Diego State, I did go to a few games, but I did watch the Super Bowl this year, which was like the second Super Bowl I've watched in 10 years. Like I just don't engage with the sport at all anymore, and that's that kind of that moral. The moral issues with concussions. For me, it was really the Ray Rice when he was caught on video knocking out his girlfriend in the elevator, and the league had covered it up until the video got out. Like I was just disgusted that they would cover for something that violent and awful, truly criminal. So yeah, same, John, and about the same time where I quit caring about football.
Right.
I was happy to see the Chargers leave. I don't feel like the city should subsidize $1 billion industry. I'm glad we didn't build them a stadium, and I'm glad that they went up the highway and couldn't draw any fans. I don't understand locals who continue to cheer for the Chargers, but you know what? I mean, we're all sports fans. Like, I cannot judge judge fans for their irrational acts because like we're all irrational.
Right. It's part of being a sports fan, right?
That's
Yeah.
fair. I still judge, but that's fair.
Right.
Nick is saying rugby's a better sport.
Yeah, well, we do have a team. I mean, frankly, the Chargers leaving did open the door for a lot of things to
Has
really
anybody
start
ever-
to grow and flourish.
Has anybody ever figured out like how to like what's going on in a rugby match? I've seen rugby being played. I don't think anybody really understands what's happening on the field. Even like the players sometimes they get tackled, they just get up and go again. Like, and everybody's kind of like on the field, like, yeah, that feels right. Like that feels like
I have
sometimes they'll
friends-
hesitate. You go ahead.
Sorry. I have friends who are actually Legion season ticket holders. They are huge into rugby, and I've gone a couple of times with them at Torero. One time in a massive freaking downpour. But I kept bombarding them with questions because, I understood the basics. It's not that
They're messing with you, man. They don't know either. I'm telling you, they're messing with you.
I mean, the
They
one guy
are
used to
messing with
referee
you.
rugby, so I think he.
Oh yeah, that's called a scrum. It's a thing. It happens on the third.
The scrum is, I
foible.
swear,
It's like
possibly
they're all
the
making
most
it-
ridiculous. No, I'm sorry. I'm going to take that back. It's possibly the second most ridiculous way to restart any game, any sport, outside of and within rugby, actually, the line out. I don't know if you've ever seen those, but they throw it in from the sideline. They have to like throw it over their heads, and their teammates are like picking up their other teammates to get the ball, while the other team is also trying to do the same thing.
I support that in soccer. I feel like you should be able to like give a guy a boost to get a header, like let him run and just pick him up
Like
and
on a corner kick?
throw. Yeah, just
Let
throw
him
him towards the
let
goal.
him spring
Just
off your
launch him.
back. Yeah.
Alicia mentions that there are head trauma issues in the sport of soccer, which is definitely true. You
Yes.
can receive concussion from headers, and I think when we talk about CTE, the thing that really gets me is not the concussions. It's what the doctors describe as subconcussive hits that have a cumulative
Right.
effect
Right.
of causing brain damage. And I don't know how much of like heading the ball, how that correlates to a pattern of subconcussive hits. I don't know how much the brain jostles, and maybe it does jostle quite a bit when you header the ball. But I don't know that it's the same as what happens in American football with these linemen who are every down bashing their heads into each other and their brain bouncing inside their heads. So I don't, I like, so for personal experience, like I would never let my kid play American football. My kid does play soccer, right? Soccer. So maybe I do have a bias here, right? Where, well, the thing that I let him do, of course I wouldn't let him do if it was dangerous, right? Like, or I wouldn't let him do it. But that is true. Like I feel like I understand the risk in soccer versus like American football, and I feel like it is less. While it is definitely still there for sure, and some goalies do wear headgear because I think in that position, if you're going to be an effective goalie, you are kind of putting yourself in harm's way more often than other players.
I think also the game has changed a bit, and some rule changes in soccer have helped. This change of the goal kick rule, where you can play to your defenders in the box, the ball doesn't have to go out of the penalty box before anybody can touch it. I think has drastically changed playing style, because I remember as a kid watching soccer, so much of it, the goalkeeper would punt it out, or it's a goal kick, and then it's people battling to head it, and the ball goes up in the air in 3 or 4 different headers before someone finally gets it under control. I think there's a combination between better playing surfaces, better skill, and some rule changes that have really knocked the amount of heading in an actual soccer game down significantly from where it was a generation ago. In most places.
I see
Not
it in
that
club
there's
soccer.
not
It's a
a
lot better.
danger still.
In
Yeah.
club soccer, it's a lot better. I was really surprised watching my kid play high school soccer this year, how that is very much still a part of high school soccer, where you have a little bit of a maybe a lower floor for some of the your best high school soccer players are not playing high school soccer. Okay, they're all in MLS Next, where they're
Right.
not allowed to play high school soccer, or they're at an academy somewhere. But in high school soccer, it's very much like that still. Long ball, punts, and then the ball is in the air half the game. It's very frustrating. I think at the club level, I've seen much more of a controlled playing from the back type of effort from most of the club teams, at least in Southern California.
Right. All right. I don't know. I was trying to look through we kind of have different conversations going on in the chat here with football and helmets and CTE.
Right. Oh, Nick is saying that the goalie helmets originated in rugby.
Yeah, like Peter Cech's helmet that he wore for a long time is just a rugby helmet.
Yeah, I don't know anything about rugby, which I'm sure y'all can tell. Right. I know it exists, and
I know a little bit to be dangerous.
There was also I don't know if I'd call it a push, but there definitely was a trend for a bit of some players starting to wear more of a halo style, not full helmet, in soccer. I think Taylor Twellman was kind of at the forefront of that because he had concussion problems at the end of his MLS career.
Carr wore that as well.
Oh man, Jason! I just saw Jason's comment. He said I sound like his dad trying to figure out soccer. I was like, listen, Jason. Okay, that is not an apt comparison. All right, okay, because the offsides rule in soccer is very clear and understandable. What a scrum is, I mean, nobody knows. I've been online. Nobody can explain that. Nobody knows. Literally nobody. Yeah, so there are with the supporters, the bad teams, we have a great opportunity this season because for the first time we will play every single team in the USL.
Right.
So
we'll get that experience with everyone.
Is there a certain team that is just a mystery to you that you are really looking forward to seeing the team play, either coming here or going there? What team that who's the enigma team to y'all that we're going to finally get to play?
I don't know. That's tough. I have so many different thoughts going through my head of different teams. My first thing that popped into my head was Indy 11, just because of the preseason they had, Jack Blake being there, and just it'll be interesting to see. I thought of some highlights I saw of Las Vegas and how they played, and a former player over there, and I thought, oh, all right, well, we'll see about that. I think, are we going to get over the hurdle with Oakland? They have been our nemesis over the last couple of years. I don't know, the chance to play like a Miami FC, who traditionally is pretty good, and see how we stack up against a lot more of the teams across the league, or I guess everyone against the league, right? Because we play them at least once. But really to see how we stack up, and that's also tough because when do you play them? And we have those weird things like, we play Phoenix this Saturday, we play them again in 2 weeks. We have San Antonio in a similar kind of thing. We got Colorado Springs
Back to
basically
back.
back-to-back
I think it
games,
is back to back.
even though we have
it
a
is.
bye week.
I'm looking at the schedule right now. It's 2 weeks apart, but it's back to back for Loyal.
Yeah. Right. I just because that's if you catch a team, if they catch us at a bad spot or we catch them at a bad spot, that's 2 quick victories either team can get right off the bat. That might be very different if you played them, spread out along the season. So it's going to be interesting to see how this season plays out.
Who was it last year that came in ahead of our U.S. Open game against Galaxy and smacked our second team?
Louisville.
That sounds like Louisville.
Well, no, it was Louisville because we were resting some players.
That's who I want another crack at Louisville because I really felt like that obviously was not our A team on the field, and they ran at the score, and maybe it was to be expected. We kind of planned for that. It was kind of like a planned, hey, we're gonna sacrifice this game so that we can be have our best showing against Galaxy. But I'd like to have another crack at Louisville and return the favor this year.
Yeah, they're a good team. That game just got away from Loyal, especially late. They're such a good team last season. And yeah, the game with them is at Louisville. They've got that new stadium that looks fantastic. I was going to mention earlier, you mentioned Indy 11. I've actually been to their stadium back in the old NASL days. Speaking of supporter groups that totally get it, there was a night of partying with Slaughterhouse 19 and with Brickyard Battalion. There's a picture somewhere of me in a group in front of a Kurt Vonnegut mural at like 2 a.m. Yeah, it's a whole story. Yeah, that's definitely another good spot. And they moved out of the big stadium where they were playing and back to the track stadium. And they've been having big news with their Indy Park, or I forget exactly what they're calling it, that they are planning on building a stadium. It's been making progress forward. And the Loyal schedule website crashed. Neat.
It's because we have such a massive audience right now. Everybody's looking at the schedule to participate in this conversation.
We're just pegging it.
The servers weren't ready for the locals lounge.
Ryan and Champ mentioned Pittsburgh. That's a team that team has been around a long time in second division terms. I don't know exactly when they were founded, but they had been around a while when I started going to Minnesota games. So respect to them. I've seen pictures of their stadium. It's kind of tucked right on the river there. I think it's around 5,000 or so. It looks really fun. I base a lot of I'm interested in that away trip or such based on stadiums or atmosphere and such.
Right.
One that unfortunately got torn down a couple years ago was the first soccer specific stadium in the U.S. Before Crew Stadium was a thing, which was Charleston. I did get the chance years ago to go to that stadium, and they had one of the best pubs attached to it, the Three Lions Pub. Fantastic experience there. Another group that I presume the regiment's still around, and they still really get it as well. I have rambled on without really answering your question, though. I don't know if there's a team that is kind of the enigma to me that I really want to see how they match up, because most of the teams are relatively known. I'm just looking over the schedule again. I think maybe Tulsa's one that I don't know a lot about. And they come here in a few weeks.
Year, and it was very weird that they beat us last year. And I would like to right that wrong as well. I feel like that was a game we should have had. It was just a stumble on the road kind of early in the season. I just want to – I feel like this is like the end of The Godfather, right? Like, we're just going to go and settle all of the family business this year because, we've got a decent back line now. We've got a new striker. We've got a great new center mid in Joe Corona, who's going to be such a difference maker on the field for us, freeing up Guido from some of those, I think, defensive duties. And so this year, we're just going to be settling old scores, writing thing like it's like in Quantum Leap. We're going to set things right that once went wrong. So we're going to beat Tulsa. We're going to beat Louisville. We're going to beat Oakland. Oakland, okay. I don't know what the sauce is, and maybe it's just random math, like that they've been able to beat us like every time we've played. I feel like this year we're going to get Oakland, and we're going to just rocket through the league and go, undefeated completely.
Have Loyal
I
ever
did
beaten
think-
Oakland?
Maybe. I feel like there
Trying
was
to
a game
remember.
that I remember they had some problem with their field and like that wasn't us. That was somebody else. They had
Right.
to cancel a game one time because their field was such a piece of shit.
I answered that
but,
question. Yes, they did. Loyal beat them at home in 2021.
Okay. It's been a while though. Been a while.
I did think of
There's
one
a lot
more
of
team.
losses in there otherwise.
I did think of Colorado Springs because I wonder what excuse they're going to give before they lose to us again this year.
And after they lose?
And after, right?
And they get to do it twice in
How
a
to
row.
delay the game and move it somewhere else.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I don't know. It was different last year. I feel like they had a really potent attack, and then they lost that player. That player is
They lost a couple of players, yeah.
so not the same. Nick wants teams with Kiwis on their roster: Charleston, Tulsa, Colorado Springs. Well, you get Colorado Springs. Tulsa, we played away last year. Are they at home this year? I don't have
Tulsa's
the
at
schedule.
home in 3 or 4 weeks. Oh, that's the game I don't get to go to because they decided to have it in the afternoon.
All right. I think we're kind of winding down here. It feels
All
like.
right. Yeah, once you start picking through the schedule, maybe that's the sign.
Right.
All right. Hey, well, thanks again to Kevin Joseph for joining us in the lounge. Thanks to John Cross for producing the lounge and the Loyal Locals pod. And thank you to everybody in the chat for sticking around with us and for being part of the conversation. That really is what the lounge is all about. We really want to see as much of that as possible because unlike the other pod where we have a lot of things we have to get to, in this one we really get to just chat about the thing that we love, and we're glad that all joined us and stuck with us. So thank you so much.